So in January, we began the session with a great opportunity to continue moving forward for Minnesota. But the House Republicans, time after time, put up obstacles to that and failed to finish the job for hardworking Minnesotans. They failed to pass a comprehensive transportation package despite promising Minnesotans that it was their top priority. Indeed, their number one accomplishment for this session, by their own words, is stopping a transportation package. I would challenge the Republicans to identify a single place where they were actually willing to compromise on transportation, where they were actually willing to compromise on 1 penny of a transportation package that we could move forward with in the state of Minnesota. They refused to compromise on improving economic security for our families. We had some really strong proposals, we believe, that would not have cost a dime, but would have really made a big difference for Minnesota families in terms of making sure they had access to earn sick leave and to paid time off. That would actually make a big difference to families. They failed and refused to extend a tuition freeze for college students when they absolutely and unquestionably could have with a nearly $2 billion budget surplus. And worst of all, they have forced a special session by refusing to compromise with Governor Dayton on his priority to invest in a better education for Minnesota's youngest learners. And there's only one reason that they refused to do all those things. It's because they wanted to keep this money on the bottom line so next year they can give big corporate tax cuts that they clearly wanted to do this year, but were unable to do. That's what was the roadblock to completing this legislative session, the fact that the Republicans' top priority, unquestionably, no matter the words that Kurt Doubt likes to say, unquestionably is tax cuts for the owners of skyscrapers and the Mall of America and big corporate tax interests. And that's shown again when you think about our efforts to put any money whatsoever really into railroad safety. Time and time again, Chairman Kelly said the reason we can't do it is the railroads won't let us do it. Corporate interests prevailed in the legislative session this year, and it's a huge problem. It is interesting to me that Kurt Doubt was making such a significant point about how they want to listen to school districts and school administrators. Now, you've got to have to kind of question that when you look at the bill they actually passed out the floor, which was 0.6% on the formula, $15 in corporate tax cuts for every $1 that they wanted to give to the school districts. So his words ring false from that perspective to begin with. But it's really not about what school districts and school administrators and school boards want. It's about what parents and families want and need. And that's who Governor Dayton is standing up for in this fight. If you look at what happened in Willmar yesterday, voters passed a referendum to do what? To invest in money for facilities for pre-kindergarten programs. They voted yesterday in Dave Baker's district to do that. And Dave Baker on his property has a sign supporting that. This is what the parents and families want. This is the direction they need to go. And the Republicans are standing in the way of that. Senator Bach and senators in January said pre-K was their priority. If you go back and look at the record, they said that. Senator Bach at the end of session said, we would pass pre-K, the Republicans won't do it. So the Speaker's idea that this is the legislature standing against the governor is flatly false. And it's demonstrated by the words of the Senate. It's also demonstrated, and we have the proposal that can close this session out right away. We put a minority report on the floor that would have done 2% and 2% on the formula, that would have funded early scholarships bigger than the Republicans are proposing, that would have funded all-day pre-K. We could do all of the above. We have the resources in Minnesota. We could make a transformational difference in our kids' lives, but the Republicans are standing against that. So by every objective measure, from my perspective, this session was a failure for the people of Minnesota. We should have and could have done much better. We should have seized a golden opportunity to build on the progress we made after the last 2 years. And if Majority Leader Pepin really wants to compare what happened in 2013 and 2014 with what was accomplished in 2015, we will take that challenge on every time. Nursing homes in 2015, although they invested actually probably about half of what we invested in long-term care. in the 2013 and 2014 session, because there was nothing for the other half of the long-term care in their budget, nothing for the 5% campaign. All-day kindergarten, $50 million in early learning scholarships, more than the Republicans put in. They claim that they put a record amount into early childhood this year. That's simply false as well. Increased the minimum wage, passed the Women's Economic Security Act, invested in broadband, tuition freeze. And again, nearly 2 times the investment in long-term care, $100 million in housing, including workforce housing. Property tax relief that actually lowered property tax in the state. Not a dime of property tax relief passed this year, and not a dime of property tax relief other than for farmers and for corporations passed the Minnesota House this year. Nothing for homeowners, nothing for renters. So if you want to compare those records, we are happy to do that. But that's not what this is about at this point. What we need to be doing is looking toward the future. And what this veto that the governor has put is going to do on this education bill is going to allow us to do. And if there's one silver lining about where we are right now, it's that we have the opportunity to hit the reset button. Just because this legislative session did almost nothing for Minnesotans in the regular session doesn't mean that this special session has to come to the same result. House Democrats stand ready to work together on doing what we should have done over the last five months, which is making sure we make a real investment in education that's going to help all learners, from the earliest learners all the way through graduation and into higher education. We can revisit all of those things and do right by Minnesotans. We can work on a transportation bill and get that done. We can really use this opportunity to move forward on a bold agenda, and we're willing to stand ready and do that for the people of Minnesota.
What other vetoes would you like to see from the governor?
Well, I mean, that's going to be up to the governor. I mean, I think that jobs bill is an example that passed. I don't think anybody still today, probably that voted for that bill, knows what's in it. I will tell you one thing that is in it. If that bill becomes law, Minnesota will not be able to issue any health insurance policies starting in October of 2015. And that's the kind of bad legislation you get when you start rushing things through at the end of session. If you recall, that conference committee, I think, met maybe twice a week before the end of session and didn't meet again since then. And it was just a accumulation of bits and pieces that were thrown together at the last minute. That's not the way you do legislation. So that's one I think that he could look at. You know, I think the higher education bill, we could do better. We could do better on that. We could freeze tuitions in the state. I mean, we have $1 billion sitting on the bottom line. Why wouldn't we take $80 million of that to freeze tuitions for all college students in the state of Minnesota?
Where's the way forward on transportation? It has seemed as though this session has worsened the partisanship on that issue, not improved it. Where is their compromise?
Well, I think people just need to sit down and start to look at what all the options are. And I think the first place is the one place where clearly there has been no compromise, which is where the Republicans are.
Mr. Speaker, you're kind of in the state of limbo here. It looks like you're coming back for special session, but the governor, you, and Senator Bach are going to this big Democratic fundraiser on Thursday. Is that a little bit unseemly?
It's a fundraiser for the Democratic Party.
You guys are the draw.
So, well, maybe the other two are. So, I mean, we have to. I don't think it's particularly unseemly. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you have to do to run political campaigns, and our party needs the infrastructure to do that, and so I think it's appropriate.
Mr. Speaker, one more question about the last 2 minutes of the legislative session. Was that bill legally passed?
Yeah, that's not a question for me to answer. Well, I think the process was terrible. We didn't get a chance to read the bill. We didn't get a chance to debate the bill on the technicalities of whether, as I understand it, the bill was at the desk. I mean, the actual physical bill was at the desk. Patrick Murphy, I think, called the wrong number at one time, but I think he actually corrected himself when it went to third reading. So, I mean, but someone else is going to have to sort out the legalities of that. But, it's kind of what you run into when you are having a bill rushed over with 3 minutes to go in the legislative session.
Were you guys trying to slow it down, the process?
Not at all. And I think if you look, if you look at the process, nothing that we did slowed it down. There was nothing, while we were debating the legacy bill, there was nothing left at the desk for the House to debate. We ended that debate in plenty of time to get the bill over to the Senate, but they were still caught up in the jobs bill. So we were, and I, told the Speaker and Majority Leader the entire time, once there's another piece of legislation sitting at the desk, we will immediately go to a vote and go to that. So there's no, not at all.
Would Democrats offer votes for a bonding bill in special session?
Sure. It depends on what the bonding bill is, and congratulations, I understand. So, yeah, okay. Obviously, but we want to be part of the discussions. And I think what happened, with the bonding bill at the end, again, like throughout the session, the Republican majority did not really come to work with us on anything. Although on the bonding bill, it may be 24 hours before the end of session, started to actually share what they were thinking about. And we need a bigger process on that if we want to engage in that discussion.
What do you want in a bonding bill that wasn't in this one, or what you want out that was in?
Well, I think rail safety would be, those crossings would be a very significant piece of it.
That must?
Well, I think it is for the people of Minnesota.
Is it for you in negotiating a bonding bill?
Because it is for the people of Minnesota, that's something we really want to see in a bonding bill, yes.
You would insist on that before you agree to?
We've been insisting on rail safety this whole session.
Anyone else up there have bills that they want to try again on, or they would like the governor to bring down to put into a special session conversation?
I have a bill for public safety equipment for fire departments and police departments to be able to be donated to a nonprofit. Right now, it's sketchy in the law as to whether they can legally do that. And this bill was loved by the Republicans in the committee process. It has more Republican co-authors than Democratic. It passed 60-0 on the Senate floor. It passed 123-2 on the House floor. It was sitting on the desk on the last day. It was supposed to be heard. At some point, I went down and said, when is this happening? I thought it was third. And they said they removed it to hold it over our heads to get things done. And I thought, well, that's like holding a toothpick over our heads because it's a minor little bill. It's good for instance, Ken Perlman, fire chief in Brooklyn Park, donates equipment wants to donate equipment over to Liberia for fire services, set up fire services over there, using the old turnout gear that we had no longer can use here. He says it's a lot better than fighting fires in the street clothes over there. Our IT person, Noble, is from Liberia and said, I know what you're talking about. This is very good. So here's this excellent small bill, but important at some level, to lives someplace, and it was taken off the agenda at the last minute as in a petty way. I'm going to seek Governor Dayton to request that to be done. It's, as I say, everybody wants it, so let's just do it in the special session. So there's a small example.
What about Feller voting restoration? That was on everybody's list initially.
Well, that would be something that was wonderful if it would be included in a discussion in special session. The Senate has now passed it 2 years in a row. It was talked about quite a bit with broad bipartisan support in the House this year. But Chair Cornish did not include it in his public safety bills anywhere along the line, and my understanding is leadership in the GOP did not want that to move forward at this time.
Any chance of it coming up?
I would love it if it would come up. I'll be happy to bring it up again, though it's going to have to be something that the governor and Majority Leader Bach will have to, I would say, put pressure on Speaker Dowd to make it part of an agreement.
Are you folks hitting the road after this?
We will be, I imagine. We don't have any particular plans right now, yes.
Any other questions? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.